Welcome back to the latest episode of TT Plays, and today is my first time having a guest on, and this guest is actually the first person I ever played in an armory. It is the one and only Michael Lau of Team Ascent. Michael, how are you, sir?
Hey, how's it going? You didn't tell me that I'm the first guest. Oh, pressure's on now. Jeez, okay.
It's okay. You got to surprise people in the beginning of an
Yeah.
interview. Like I said, I've been playing for a little over a year now. You were the first person to play Mid Armory. At the time, you were playing Icelander, but as I've gotten to know you better in and out of Flesh and Blood, you strike me as kind of just an illusionist main. Is that an accurate assessment of you, Michael?
That's a pretty accurate assessment, that's for sure. Illusionist is how I got in the game, and that's what I've pretty much been playing for about 2 years now. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'd love to talk about today as illusionists in general. But first, like, what's kept you kind of home as an illusionist main? What do you think the pros and cons are of being a class main? I know your brother is also kind of renowned for being a warrior main.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, my brother's the warrior Lau. I'm the illusionist Lau. What's really appealed for me for illusionist is just like the incremental advantage that you can accrue over the course of the game. Having permanence kind of breaks a lot of the mold of and math for the game, and it allows your opponent to make mistakes, especially, and so you can kind of capitalize on that. Um, and then I also think that illusionist is one of the classes that can really like when you're backed into a corner, you just can't kill them. And oftentimes they can just dump their hand and continue to poke you with their board state. And so they can oftentimes like clutch things out from a very dire situation. So some of the best games I've had, you just thought you're in a corner at one life, but you just won't die.
No, that's one of the things I've loved so much about Icelanders. I feel like you always have that comeback potential, and I can see how Dromai or Old Prism can have that potential as well. What have you done to stay interested in one class for so long? I end up with a wandering eye, and I end up buying a couple too many decks. Probably. What have you done to kind of keep yourself rooted there?
Well, one is kind of out of necessity. I just don't have the cards for other classes. But jokes aside, I think it's each of the I say each when there's really only two illusionists. They can be built in many different ways, and so the matchup variety is and play style requirement depending on the matchups is so wide, right? I mean, the biggest delineation is between pauper decks versus non-pauper decks. But if I'm running a ranger, you're pretty much doing the same thing. I'm shooting arrows at person till dead. Even wizard is I shoot you with arcane till dead. But illusionist is I have to dismantle you in a different way depending on who you are. And so I think that kind of like puzzle box is really fascinating, and just the fact that you can have so many levels of interaction at all steps in combat is just so fun.
So, do you think all classes have that depth, or do you think illusionist is one of the deeper classes that's been able to help keep your interest for so long?
Yeah, I think illusionist definitely has a lot of depth, and not to knock against any of the other classes, but obviously illusionist is the best one. But I think there's just it rewards a lot of mastery and knowledge, because again your matchup styles are just so diverse. So it's not a deck that you can just pick up and be good at very fast.
No, I've definitely found that to be true. You've been very kind in giving me some deck lists, and I have had no idea what to do with them on many occasions. So there are technically two illusionists legal right now. I thought real quickly we could talk about Prism.
Yeah.
There was a lot of hype leading into Dust Till Dawn, and then I think we saw Prism in her kit, and I think there was some disappointment. But Michael, how do we feel about Prism right now?
Yeah. Prism was my first love with the game. First deck, getting the little Blitz deck at Heart of Gold. Yeah. She holds a special place in my heart. How she came back kind of leaves much to be desired. Unfortunately, you can try many different deck archetypes to try to make it work. But I mean, the nature of illusionists is their matchups can be unfortunately quite polarizing, which is probably one of the biggest turnoffs that I have for the class is you just get polarizing matchups. Um, but I think that's kind of the biggest issue that we're seeing with the new Prism right now is you can build a deck that does well into half the field, but then it just folds to the other half, and vice versa. You can try to set something up that does decently well into the other half, and then just flops on the other half. And the two halves really are, again, just like the pauper matchups versus the non-pauper matchups. So you can kind of pick and choose which one you want to, insulate yourself against. But at the end of the day, you're just going to struggle. And so, um, and yeah, the detriment of, 8 life means you have to fully capitalize on Ward 4 twice in a game before you quote unquote break even with that. But it's rough. I am ever hopeful. I hope to be wrong. Like, somebody please prove me wrong. Make a deck work. Please share it with me because I'll hop on that thing so fast.
No, I trust that you or some other illusionist man will figure it out. Prism Wars looks a lot of fun. There's a lot of moving parts. I just don't know that they do that much at the end of the day. But Dromai has kind of been your home for a while. Dromai has obviously been putting up pretty decent results lately. And I think Dromai is a fascinating deck because, like you said, there are so many different ways to build Dromai. I see a lot of the red line version lately. Could you speak to why you think the meta has necessitated Dromai, not necessitated, but has kind of encouraged Dromai to shift towards this build?
Yeah, for sure. Well, Redline Dromai, Mara Ferris really popularized a lot of the Redline Dromai. Her success with it in the past few tournaments has just really like sparked that interest. I believe, ultimately there's 4 different ways you can build Dromai, Redline being one of them. It's extremely popular because it's fast, it's good. It doesn't There are some like powerful and strategic decisions that you need to make, but not as much as some other ones. So it is easier to pilot compared to some of the other Dromai decks you can possibly run. And I think that into the certain like meta picks, for example, Lexi being a top deck, Redline Dromai is extraordinarily powerful against Lexi, and can hold its own even against Icelander if you know what you're doing with Flamescale Furnace. So I think that the deck is popular because it's good and it's easier to pick up and see success.
Yeah, it's also a relatively speaking inexpensive deck when
Yeah,
I compare it to other decks in the market, which I know can be I mean, unless you decide to go all Marvelly, but I think it's a good starting point for like a cheaper competitive deck.
yeah, for sure.
So you said you thought there were 4 versions of Dromai. Can we quickly hit on the other ones that you think are worth mentioning?
Yeah. So, what is the trope in basketball? If you want to see the intent of the person you're guarding, look at their feet or something like that. So yeah, you look at the shoes. What kind of shoes is Dromai rocking? That is a huge indicator of what to expect from them. So the 4 main styles. I mean, we went over Redline, which is Snapdragons. Then there's I would argue, the second most popular, which is Mage Master Boots. So that's typically your bigger dragon style deck that runs the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cost dragons, supplemented with actually having blues in the deck, and then typically running Toma Fiendo as well for life gain. So that one plays for a longer strategy, longer game, and yeah, tries to plop down dragons that force the game to go long. The next style is the Phantasmal Footsteps. I shortcut it as PF style, really. And that's kind of the mid-rangey one. Phantasmal Footsteps allows you to potentially block, making an Ash, and or you can also swing with some of your more cost-efficient attacks like Doombreaker Cenopai or Spears of Sterility, maybe even throwing a few Ember Maws in there as well without the risk of just your turn ending. So it allows you to get some of those like bigger, beefier attacks in, while maintaining a very high dragon count. So it's kind of mixing the styles of the two. You can typically run your bigger dragons along with running some more aggressive cards with Go again. And then finally, the 4th one, probably kind of meme-ish, is the Iris Dromai. Uh, we laugh about that now, but now Prism is crying because that's what she needs to do if she wants to try to beat Pauper decks. So I don't know. I will take the +8 life, although you do lose the instant auras, which is really really good. But anyway, Iris Dromai is the last one. Not a good deck. I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay, so in this current meta, obviously, I think the meta's kind of gotten a little faster since Oldhim's gone away, right? So I think that's one of the reasons we've seen so much of Redline. Plus, as you said, Mara Ferris is a badass, and they've
Yep.
been piloting the deck very well. Do
Yeah,
you think Mage Master or Phantasmal Footsteps has a place in the meta?
I think so. Especially with Icelander getting some more results recently. It's definitely see, with the red line deck, 1, 2 frostbites can really shut down the deck, and losing a card, from was it Aether Ice Fang, can really slow down the deck as well. So there's some issues that the red line deck would run into. The Mage Masters and Phantasmal Footsteps is more insulated because you have a blue count that's typically 11 to 14. So you should have like one every hand roughly, which again will insulate you insulate you from frostbites and other sorts of forms of disruption. Um, on top of that, Bravo has also been putting out some results as well. The red line version is extraordinarily fatigable. So I got to experience that quite handedly this past armory. It's like, wow, okay, yeah, if the Bravo decides, hey, I'm going to kill every single dragon you put down, even if you try to stack things like Lost in Thought, a Chromai, and a Mirror Guy, you'd think, hey, I'm going to be able to crack through. Yeah, you get maybe 1 turn, 2 turns of tempo on that, but then you're just back to not having a real end game strategy. Cards like Remembrance is really important for like putting some of those major threats back into the deck for you. And so I think, to answer the question simply, in our expected meta going into nationals, I do believe that there is room for Mage Master and PF style because of the presence of Icelander and Bravo.
All right. Well, I won't ask you to tip your hand too much. I know you're going to nationals, Michael, and obviously good luck there. So kind of as we wrap this up, what do you have? Like, what is your like 1 or 2 sentence tagline for why people should check out or explore Illusionist?
If you like building a board state, if you like amazing comebacks, if you like not dying, I think Illusionist is the way to go. Yeah, build a board state, farm some tears from your opponent over time. Of course, shake their hand afterwards. But yeah, it's a very fun class to play. A lot of interaction that you get to have with your own deck and also with your opponent's deck. And yeah, it rewards mastery. So at the beginning, you might go like, "Man, I suck at this deck," or or this deck sucks. But man, you got to put in hours. You got to put in games. So yeah, the deck definitely rewards mastery.
I think the 2 biggest turnoffs for Dromai for me personally have been, and you alluded to one of these before, the bad matchups have felt incredibly bad. There are some bad Icelander matchups. Well, actually, old Prism felt about this bad, but like the bad Dromai matchups just feel absolutely horrible. And I know and acknowledge that with time and understanding of the deck better, those get a little better, but that has been a source of frustration. The other thing is Talishar with Dromai is kind of painful.
So
And
I've
that's
heard.
my preferred grinding method. I know you avoid the Talishar. So
Yeah.
for those 2 reasons, I've kind of avoided Illusionist, but when I have sleeved it up and played it in paper, it has been an incredible amount of fun.
Yeah.
So, Michael, I do want to thank you for coming on. Hopefully that gives people who have never explored the Illusionist class a little bit of an idea of what's going on. We'll have the different builds Michael recommended down in the notes there. You can check out the decks on Fabry. I do want to shout out MinMax Games, which I believe is a sponsor of Team Ascent.
That was
And I
correct.
think there's a discount code you can use, Michael, for
Yeah,
5% off.
if you use promo code Ascent, you can get 5% off at checkout.
Yeah,
And
and
it
that's
supports us.
and that's at minmaxgamesfab.com. Be sure to get all the singles you need leading up to Nationals. Michael Lau, I want to thank you so much for joining me. Good luck at Nationals coming up. And until next time, everyone, cheers and happy gaming.